Okay, well, welcome everybody. I am Carol Merlo, and I've decided to call myself the left brain mystic today. And I'm really excited to share this presentation with you and this information because I know that it has transformed my life, and I bet it's going to help you transform yours as well. The thing is, it's creating a new business, if you haven't, requires a lot, and maintaining a business, if you haven't, requires a lot. And so this webinar and information is going to address both of those things. Okay, so those of you that are on this call are interested in being an entrepreneur, right? Or you are an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurial, the nature of an entrepreneur is quite different than the nature of an employee. There's this really great book out there called Rich Dad, Poor Dad that explains that really, really well. And so people will say you're either working in your business or on your business. And that is a far cry from working for somebody else and trading your time for money. And yet the majority of people do. Why? Because they haven't developed the skills that I'm going to teach you tonight. Just frankly, that's the truth. So, if you're starting to get down on yourself, you're trying to build something and all of you feel, oh, I'm just not motivated. Well, you got to realize that the inner self and the outer self need to be in alignment in order for you to be effective in your business. There are 5 common internal barriers. We always start with the inside because this is where everything exists. The entire universe is inside of you. And the external, as it is what's going on inside of you is applied to the external. That's when you manifest or don't manifest, depending on how well you manage your inner self. So let's look at some of these things and see if you can identify with any of them. Conflicting priorities, don't know how. That was the one that stopped me a lot. Overwhelm, fear of failure, and lack of boundaries. So some people will say fear of failure and fear of success. They're pretty much essentially the same thing. So it's fear. And there have been cases that, oh man, I was set up this whole thing. It was going to be a meeting. It was a meetup. I had scheduled it with this other person. And the registrations didn't come in. There was like 3 people that had registered for this thing we were giving away gifts. We did a whole big thing. And I was so afraid of showing up and not knowing what to do with a really small audience that I didn't go. So was that fear of failure or fear of success? I don't know, but I know that fear can stop you in the craziest of times. It's not because I consciously chose that. It was because some overwhelming thing took me over. And so that's one of these internal things. Overwhelm, where you've got so much going on and you're trying to accomplish just a bunch of stuff. What happens? You don't do it, right? You don't do it because one thing, the priority of one thing conflicts with the priority of another thing. Those 2 things cancel each other out. Then what happens? Then what happens? Yeah, you go, okay, well, I think the laundry needs to be done. Or something like that, right? Because the overwhelm like shuts you down. So this is a big one. Don't know how is another trap I got into because if I knew how, then I would be able to do it. But I don't know how. So that would stop me. Thank God for ChatGPT because now I've learned how to find out everything under the sun. Way better than YouTube videos for me. And so that's my new best friend and really, really helps you if you're getting stuck someplace and you go, I don't know how. All right, the next one is external barriers. Now, most people, when they're thinking of business or entrepreneurship, they're thinking of business stuff, right? Business stuff like selling, marketing, all those kinds of things. The doingness of business, finances, taxes, rentals of your if you have a brick and mortar, the rental fee and all that kind of stuff is a lot, right? And so the thing that happens with external barriers or external phenomena is that if your inner game isn't straightened out and aligned and you don't know exactly what you want and you don't have a strong vision that you repeat over and over and over and again to yourself, then what will happen is will be another cause of overwhelm, right? So I love this, taking courses but never implementing. I'm a teacher and I see it over and over again where somebody will pay money to take a course and they won't do the homework, they won't read, they won't be effective as in their final project or whatever, right? Because they just weren't experiencing the benefit of having learned without taking a course. And I'm going to talk more about that later on. Working alone without structure and support, or trying to grow without a strategy. So, all of these are very important blocks that you've all experienced. And if you haven't, you will. All right. So, this coaching program is for people like you, energy workers, meditation teachers, holistic entrepreneurs, oh gosh, metaphysical and new thought practitioners, any kind of spiritually oriented business owner. Now, the material I'm teaching applies to any person that's an entrepreneur. However, my focus, and you'll see this, if not tonight, you'll see it later on as a client, that everything is basically based in my sense of spirituality. And so I really fit into this model here of all these different kinds of people. And I would imagine you do too. So let me tell you why I'm qualified to share anything with you, to be a wise woman. I started out as a teenager singing professionally when I was 14. And then by the time I was 28 or so, I was on the road with a band and all that kind of stuff, making zero money. And I quit. I couldn't handle it anymore, being around drunks all the time and that kind of thing, and couldn't get a job. So the things I was qualified for was retail and being a secretary, but I couldn't type. So I couldn't do that. And it was really, really tough having no business skills. Now, to top it off, I also had 10 years of metaphysical studying, meditation every single day for 10 years, usually an hour at a time. And I could move in consciousness all right, but I could not manifest. I didn't know how to get a job. So then what happened was I was in a relationship. I decided to end the cycle of domestic violence and moved to a women's shelter with this infant. He was 1.5, I think, and had no money and couldn't get a job. If I got a job, it wouldn't be enough to pay for diapers and babysitting. So this is when I decided to take the bull by the horns. I decided, okay, I am going to learn a marketable skill. Now, I am pretty individualistic, so I'm not really good as an employee. I mean, I can do it, but I don't experience joy there. So I started to develop entrepreneurial skills. And out of that 15 years, learning more and more things, it was actually a lot of fun. I created a company called Health, Wealth, and Happiness, and then got a master's degree and a BS and a spiritual coaching license along the way. So these things helped me to really get into monetizing a business and being effective. So here was the result. No debt, a surplus of money, no debt. It was so amazing for me when that first happened that I could pay the bills and pay off all the credit cards every single month. I had no debt. It was wow. Anyway, it was huge for me. Okay, then a dream home. We got this house in South Lake, Texas that was 4,000 square feet on a hill. Just beautiful one-story house with a beautiful pool in the back, and behind it was a outcropping of rocks, these big, big rocks, and tons of pine trees. So it was a wonderful, wonderful house. We lived there for 11 years and then we sold it. So Dream Home got that control of my time. When you're an entrepreneur, rather than you're working for somebody, you get to decide what time you're going to do it. That's an asset and a liability, right? Because if you aren't able to manage your time and your priorities, then you whittle away time and you're not as effective. So it's a benefit because I didn't have anybody telling me what to do, but it was a liability because that meant I had to tell me what to do. Okay. And greater personal freedom for sure. So now I had these inner skills, and I finally started to marry the outer skills, the inner skills, so I could start manifesting. And then I realized I did that for like 15 years, like I said, but then I got to where I wanted to retire. And so I decided I needed to start writing books. I've written 8 books right now and on different topics. And so I decided basically that what's going on in your life is what's between your ears, right? That's what's determining your success. So I start this way, and there's 3 key elements of manifestation in life, whether it's business, whether it's relationships, whether it's whatever it is that your thing is, the thing you really, really want. And it starts with the foundation. So you'll notice at the bottom of this pyramid, it says purpose, mission, and vision. I will teach you how to establish that so it is so clear in your mind that you won't deviate, that you won't forget one day. You won't lose your passion because you'll know what your purpose is and your mission and your vision. Then up the pyramid, we go to values. If you're not working in a company or in an area where your values don't match that of your clients or your audience or whomever, then you're going to experience a conflict with your purpose, mission, and vision, right? So that's really important to understand what your values are and then to be able to discern, is this aligning with my values, or like, do I need to disconnect here? Or is this enhancing my life? And we make these decisions in business over and over and over again. Then we have goals. So a goal is a big thing. And I teach this because a lot of people will set goals that are unrealistic, and they come in and they go, I'm going to make $100,000 this year. And right now they're on minimum wage. Well, maybe they need to understand that goals are about what can you actually experience yourself believing to see it manifest. That's the number one thing. So if you set goals that are unrealistic and too high, you always fail. And then after a few years of that, you give up for sure. Tactics are how you implement goals. That's all that means. And then DMO is daily methods of operation, the things you do every single day in order to be your own boss. That means you got to have somebody that's the boss telling you what to do. All right, that's number one. Number two is the inner game. So in the inner game, we've got attitude, right? Ideology, strategy and goals, balanced implementation plan. So again, these are the things that on a day-to-day basis separate out those who succeed in their business, so long as they have the skill set. There you could say, I want to be a singer and you're tone deaf. Well, that ain't going to work. So once you have that, then it's these things. What's your attitude like on a daily basis? And do you get discouraged or negative, or do you stay positive? Do you stay uplifted? Do you do things on a daily basis to get you into that state? Because our brains are more wired towards survival, which a lot of times can mean looking for the negative outcome. So we have to do daily behaviors. I call them spiritual practices. to keep yourself in the inner game, to make it work. Strategy and goals is a thought process. It's really understanding, what do you want first? What do you want ultimately? What do you need to do along the way? Okay. It takes coaching, to tell you the truth. Hard to do on your own. And then a balanced implementation plan, which means, what am I going to do today? Do I have a calendar? What I'm going to check my emails. If I go to social media, will I get distracted? Um, oh, what about my social media implementation plan? Oh, I got to create a project, or I have to create a product. And there's all of this stuff going on that is like, what's going to happen first? And that's about priorities management. And I teach you that as well. Then we have the outer game: marketing, sales, accountability tracking, and finances. Many people lose it here, right? They go, well, yeah. And I'll tell you what, the truth about all these things is, you can hire it out. Most people, when they get to a certain level, they cannot not do this. You can't afford to be doing everything yourself if you want to be focusing on your purpose and mission and vision, because these probably may not be aligned with it. I do it. I've learned it all myself, but there's a lot of people that that's not their wheelhouse at all. And it's really important to get rid of those things. I've got lots of ways of teaching people how to do that. Okay, then we got organization, time management, and priorities management. These are three skills that are internal skills that are important, necessary, essential to execute a powerful and productive business. So these are things that can be taught, and with the right motivation, they can be turned into habits, daily habits. So this is a strategy for stretching yourself into a more successful and happy business. And I'm going to spell these out for you. Here's focus. Now, notice this cat looking at a dragonfly. But no matter what a cat looks at, when it's a potential prey, and a cat is a supreme predator, it's going to stop and it's going to look. And it's going to keep on looking until it's ready to pounce. And while it's looking, it's assessing, what is the feasibility of me being able to accomplish attacking that prey? Cats do this better than any other animal. You can see it with snakes, you can see it with dogs. You don't see it with prey animals. You can't imagine a squirrel doing that, for example. So this is where the image I use when I'm thinking about focus. So what I did was I clarified my intention, my direction, and my identity. Identity was critical for me because I didn't believe in myself in the beginning, and I had to learn how to do that. And that's the other role that I have as a coach, is to help people develop that awareness of who they actually are and how that fits in with their life. Okay, ignition. This is the next one. You can also think of this as intention, but ignition has a little bit more power to it. So notice the carrot and stick. You can create your own carrot and stick ways to keep yourself motivated. And so I teach some really good ones in this program to help you keep yourself in the game. So you're not giving up, you're not going to take a nap, you're not watching too much TV and all that kind of stuff, but you're enjoying the process of creating and building your business. The next one is relationships. Relationships in business are critical because they're your network. In the beginning, they're your advertising. So if you have imbalanced communication skills, let's say you are an over talker or you're an under talker, well, you're going to have different outcomes. And so one of the things I teach is the communication cycle and how to be effective at communication. There's another aspect of this called active listening, which helps you listen to what your prospect really wants, see if what you have fits their need, and then communicate it to them in a way that they're able to receive it. Beautiful skill, necessary for everybody. And so I teach that as well. And then finally, execution. Now, execution is really, it's like I have another picture you'll see that's a guy going off a diving board, right? So once you have stepped off that diving board, you have no choice but to get in the water. And so that's what execution is really about, is getting yourself off the diving board and into action on a regular basis. I have a lot of tools that help you with this so that you, and then also the accountability part of coaching is really important here so that you continue to do these behaviors till you get to the point where you can actually be so self-motivated and so driven that you don't, the coaching relationship becomes one of parity and exchange. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, so here's my slide on that. It's very difficult to do this without a coach. Why? Because we tend to recede back to our previous state. They call it regression to the mean. And all that means is your zero is the most comfortable place for your brain. And if you're starting to go up here to say 10, well, then your brain's going, hey, this ain't comfortable. I need to do things to make sure that I am safe and get myself back into zero again. When you add another person into the equation, now you have something besides your brain telling you what it wants. And you can be supported into overcoming that. And then you do it enough, and pretty soon you're thriving on the joy that happens from the sense of expansion and courage and power that you now have. So now imagine being in a group of conscious, enlightened entrepreneurs, people that are just like you, that are going through this learning together so that you can learn from each other as you're learning from me, and we can then inspire each other as a group. Well, now, a lot of people will say, well, I can go take an e-course. Well, an e-course involves a lot of things, but it's not coaching. So in coaching, participants get clarification right as soon as they're stuck, right? And when they take a class or an e-course, they don't get that. And then where am I going to go to get my question answered? Then you get to see each other and get ideas on how other people can succeed and how you can succeed. You get to change your behavior because you're being supported and somebody's holding you accountable. Can't say enough about this. People, when you've got a cohort of a group, everybody's accountable as they're turning in their homework. Yeah, I have homework, which really helps you build your business. So it's not like a terrible thing, but it involves work. Okay. And then people will retain more of what when they're interacting with people than when they're in a passive learning model or role. So that's really important to understand. The next thing is, what is this thing I'm talking about? This is a 12-week transformation program for conscious entrepreneurs. The first 6 weeks, we basically talk about the inner game. And I have every single session has a workbook, and we have like fill in the blank sheets and that kind of stuff, inventories, to help you identify what your purpose is, what your vision is, what your values are. Where are you in terms of a marketing plan or a business plan? How's your time going to look? We have lots and lots of different tools that we teach that'll help you each and every step along the way. Then we have the second 6 weeks. Now, this is business training. Very important, right? Because now when you've established your foundation and you know who you are, you can then start to approach these things with a more enlightened viewpoint. So your business blueprint, we teach that. It's really important, really important. How to attract your ideal audience, paths to immediate visibility, being confident in your conversations. I talked about that a little bit earlier. Follow-up mastery. The fortune's in the follow-up. It's the hardest thing in the world because I'm just going to give you a little tip. It takes between 5 and 15 touches into a person before they start actually manifesting the desire to buy or to awaken enough to say, no, I'm not interested. So this regular, repeated information and communication is really critical. Hence the email autoresponders and that kind of thing. But social media is really important too in this area. But we go through that and you learn and then you apply. And then the last week is operational habits that build momentum. And this is where you'll create your plan. You'll create your calendar. You'll know where your time is, what you're going to do along the way so that you don't achieve overwhelm and you're still proud of yourself as you're building and growing your business. So it's a really great program and can encourage you enough to experience what it's like to be coached in this way. So what changes in 12 weeks is you're going to have an alignment between your identity and your business. So you'll know that you and your business are partners because that way your inner self feels supported and loving and is more able to then attract the money and the people that are needed in order for you to be successful at whatever your business is. Okay, and so reduced overwhelm, predictable income making activities. I thought that was a cute way to say that. So there you go. And then the next step is for you to go click on carolmerlo.com and then schedule a 20-minute talk with me. Let's see if you're at the right place right now and I'm the right person to help you experience the business of your dreams.